Kitsune, aka whatever. Welcome to my very first instructional video for a job in Final Fantasy XIV, specifically Machinist. This is my favorite job in the game. I love it to pieces. And in this video, I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know in order to not suck at playing Machinist. First, and most importantly, is the attribute points you gain when you level up. The stat you want to put them into is Dexterity, as this is the primary stat of Machinist and determines how much damage you will be dealing. None of these other stats are of any use to Machinist in any real sense. Strength does nothing, Vitality just gives you more health, and you're a DPS, you don't need that. Intelligence does magic damage, you don't do magic damage. Mind, healing magic potency, you don't have healing magic. Piety gives you more MP, you don't need more MP. Obviously, if you're for accessories, you're going to want accessories that have Dexterity on them, because, again, your primary stat, so put those on! Next up, let's discuss your actions and traits. Traits are passive abilities you gain as you level up, which do things like give you more Dexterity, or enhance a specific skill. So, at level 8, you gain Enhanced Dexterity 1, which gives you an extra 2 Dexterity on top of your normal. At level 14, you gain the passive Lodged Lead, which makes your lead shot, which is your damage over time, last for 30 seconds, instead of I'm not sure how long it normally lasts, because you start at level 30 on Machinist. Enhanced Dexterity 2 is gained at level 16, which gives you another 4 Dexterity. At level 20, you get increased action damage, which just makes everything you do that causes damage 10% more damaging than it was before. Very useful to have. Level 24, Enhanced Dexterity 3, another 6 Dexterity. At level 28, you get Enhanced Reassemble, which shortens the Reassemble recast time to 60 seconds. Reassemble is a very important skill. At level 32, you get Quicker Reload, which shortens Quick Reload's recast time to 15 seconds. Again, a very important skill. At level 36, you get Enhanced Spread Shot, which makes its range 12 yalms instead of, I believe, 6. Which is very useful, but only when you really need to be doing AoE attacks anyway. At level 40, you get Increased Action Damage 2, which further increases your damage dealt by 20%. Enhanced Rapid Fire, gained at level 44, causes your Rapid Fire effect to work for 3 weapon skills. We'll get into the effect when I'm actually covering the skills, obviously. And finally, at level 48, you get Enhanced Wildfire, which makes Wildfire's damage compilation 25%, rather than, I believe it was 15% before. We'll cover what that means in just a moment. And now, on to the skills. Now, these are the things you're going to be using when you're fighting various enemies. You obviously are going to have everything up to level 30 skills, except for, I believe, it's either Rapid Fire or Hotshot, which is unlocked with the first quest for Machinist. I can't remember which, and it doesn't really matter because you're going to be doing it anyway. But let's go over the skills. First is Split Shot, the level 1 skill, so if you're ever level synced down to level 1, which only happens in the Palace of the Dead, you will have this skill and only this skill, and it is, barring the use of your ammunition providing skills, or just getting lucky when you have the other skills available, this will be the skill you're using constantly. It costs 60 TP out of your 1000, and it delivers a potency 140 attack, which is technically weaker than the other ranged DPS's bread and butter attack, but we'll get into that in just a moment, because it also has the additional effect of a 50% chance of increasing your next slug shot potency by 80. And that's the important part. Gauss Barrel's effect causes your next slug shot will have no cast time if you get the 50% proc. That special proc has a 10% duration where you have until it wears off to use the next skill and gain the bonus. If you have ammunition, it's guaranteed to give you the enhanced slug shot proc. Then at level 2, you have Slug Shot. This is your next skill. Ordinarily, it only has a 100 potency for its damage, costs the same as Slug Shot. But if you have the Enhanced Slug Shot proc active, it's a 180 potency attack, and it has a 50% chance of increasing your next clean shot's potency by 100. If you're under Gauss Barrel, clean shot will also have no cast time. And again, that lasts for 10 seconds, or until you use clean shot. If you have an ammunition loaded, then it's guaranteed to have that special status proc. And then at level 4, reload, one of the most important skills for a machinist. It is a 60-second cooldown, which will give you 5 ammunition. Each ammunition you use adds 20% potency to, 20 potency to whichever weapon skill you use when you fire. So, say I have ammunition and I fire a split shot. It's a 160 potency attack because of the ammunition bonus, and guarantees I have the ability to fire a potency 180 slug shot. If I have another ammunition left after I fire split shot, then slug shot is actually 200 potency because of the ammunition. So as you can see, reload is very, very useful. Now, your level 6 skill is lead shot. This is your damage over time. It costs 70 TP, so it's a little pricier than your primary attacks, and it only delivers a potency 40 impact for its damage, but then applies a damage over time effect of 45 potency, so every 3 seconds the enemy will take another 45 potency worth of damage from your damage over time. Due to the lodged lead trait, this lasts for 30 seconds. I think it's like 15 or 18 seconds without it. At level 8, you get Heartbreak. This is your execute skill. It only works if the enemy is below 20% of their maximum health. It's a 30-second cooldown and deals a potency 180 attack. It has no cast time and costs nothing. Very useful to use when the enemy is nearly dead. At level 10, you get Leg Graze, a 20-second cooldown which inflicts a 40% heavy, meaning that the enemy moves 40% slower when wandering around trying to get to you. It lasts for 12 seconds, 8 seconds in PvP, but I don't do PvP, so that doesn't matter. It shares a recast timer with Foot Graze, which is a later skill which we'll get into when we get to it. You can see it just a few slots down. At level 12, you get Reassemble, a 60-second cooldown with it's shortened, I think it's like 90 seconds otherwise. The next weapon skill you use is guaranteed to be a critical hit, meaning it's guaranteed to do 50% more damage than it normally would. After activating this cooldown, you have 20 seconds to fire a weapon skill to get the benefit. At level 15, you get Blank, a 30-second cooldown with a 5 Yalm radius, so you have to get almost in melee range to use it. It's a potency 100 with a 15 Yalm knockback effect. Do not use this in most situations, as you will send the enemy flying out of melee range of the tank, possibly break line of sight on mage DPS, and any melee DPS you have are going to have to try and chase it down or wait for it to come back. It's not a DPS up, it's a DPS down. But if the enemy cannot be knocked back, or it's already right up against the wall and you can just slam it into the wall, go right ahead. Careful and intelligent use of Blank will increase your DPS and be a benefit to the party. At level 18, you get Spread Shot. This is your first, and honestly one of your most useful AoE attacks, because you only have 2. It's got a 12 Yalm range, meaning 12 Yalms in front of you. A Yalm is about a yard, I believe. And it's got a 12 Yalm radius. It's a cone attack, so it's not like a circle blast. But if you just get kind of close to an enemy, you can generally shoot everything that's in front of you. It delivers a potency 100 attack to everything in the cone in front of you. So it can be very useful. Physical DPS AoE attacks are not the most powerful things in the world, so generally only use them when there's a very large group of enemies, because at that point it's actually more efficient. Otherwise, single target damage tends to kill things faster and not make you run out of TP and thus do no damage at all. At level 22, you get Foot Graze. This is the other 20-second cooldown that's tied with Leg Graze. It applies Bind for 12 seconds, or 8 in PvP. This prevents the victim from moving at all. But if they take any damage, they start moving again. This is mainly used in certain situations to make an enemy you need to stay in one spot stop moving. At level 26, you get Quick Reload, which starts at a 30-second recast, but with the Quicker Reload trait is a 30-second recast. This is a very useful skill because it allows you to get 1 ammo every time you use it, and gives you back 30 TP every time you use it. So, don't be afraid to use it every time it comes off cooldown, it's just useful. At level 30, we have Hot Shot, which is a potency 120 attack for 70 TP. So, not a bad attack, weaker than Split Shot. But the reason you want to use it is because after you hit something with it, for the next 30 seconds, you do 5% more physical damage. 5% might not sound like a lot, but it can make a difference. Also at level 30, we have Rapid Fire, which when you first have it, only allows you to use a one weapon skill with the reduced recast time of 1.5 seconds. But when enhanced by the enhanced Rapid Fire trait, it's 3 weapon skills. And this is very useful if you are under the effect of Gauss Barrel, because it makes the skills not have a recast time not have a cast time while also having a much shorter recast time, allowing you to fire off a series of shots very quickly and be able to move if you need to. And next, at level 34, Head Graze, a 25-second cooldown. It shares its recast time with Suppressive Fire, a later level skill that we'll get to when we get to. It's a 100 potency attack with a 2-second silence effect, which can be very useful if you are dealing with an enemy that's casting a very annoying spell that you need to stop. At level 35, you get Clean Shot. This is acquired from your second Machinist job quest. It is a potency 100 attack ordinarily, but if you have the Cleaner Shot proc from firing a slug shot, either under ammunition or just getting lucky, it becomes a potency 200 attack. If you have any ammo loaded, it's a potency 220 attack. So, very nice! At level 38, you gain Wildfire. This is a 90-second cooldown, and it is one of the most important skills on Machinist. You throw this on an enemy, and for the next 15 seconds, most of the damage you do is added together, and when the time runs out, it will detonate and deal, before you have the enhanced Wildfire trait, I believe 15% of the total damage you dealt in those 15 seconds. But with the enhanced Wildfire, it's 25%. I have managed to get this to do 5,000 to 6,000 damage on my Machinist when I'm doing a full burst, unleashing absolutely everything I can. It can be pretty impressive. At level 40, your third job quest will give you the Rook Auto Turret as well as the Turret Retrieval skill. Rook Auto Turret has a 10-second recast. It allows you to place down a turret. It's a single target turret which will deal a potency 80 attack every approximately 3 seconds. Hypercharge potency is 160. We'll deal with hypercharge later. It also causes it to inflict a 10% physical damage resistance down on whatever it's shooting for 10 seconds. It shares its recast with the Bishop Auto Turret, which is another later skill, which we'll get to before long. I will, of course, be demonstrating these skills in a little bit. The Turret Retrieval is a 5-second recast. I'm not sure why it's a shorter recast than the turret themselves, which allows you to just remove the turret. It has no real function in combat, but I like using it just because it's kind of neat to retrieve your turret. At level 42, you get Promotion, which is a 5-second recast, which allows you to make your turret stop attacking and produce a 20 Yalm radius regeneration field. If it's your Rook Auto Turret, then it's going to regenerate TP for everyone in that field. If it's the Bishop Auto Turret, it regenerates MP. If you hypercharge, then the potency of the regen effect is doubled. While a turret is promoted, it will gradually deplete your MP. With the Bishop Auto Turret activated, your MP will still slowly drain away, even though it's being regenerated. At level 45, your next job quest will give you Suppressive Fire, which is a potency 100 attack, 5 yalm radius, so you have to be nearly within melee range, and it has a 2-second stun. There are times when this will be more useful than using head graze. There will also be times when you don't want to use either of them because you have to save them for something, as people will often use these cooldowns for a little extra damage when they're doing their burst. At level 46, you get Granado Shot, which costs 160 TP. Very expensive, but it fires a 5 yalm radius explosive at whatever you're targeting to deal a potency 120 attack to it and everything near it. And now, level 50, you have another job quest which gives you the Bishop Auto Turret, which allows you to place a turret which does a 60 potency AoE attack. It's got about, I think it has a little more range than Granado Shot, might have the same, because it doesn't tell you what its radius is. If you hypercharge, it's potency 120. While hypercharged, it will give everything it hits a 10% magic vulnerability up, so that mages will do more damage. So there are times when that might be useful. You also gain at level 50 Dismantle, which is a 90-second cooldown, which shares its cooldown with Rendmind, another later cooldown that we'll be getting to shortly. It lowers the physical damage dealt by the target by 5% for 10 seconds, which can be useful, especially if you know that they're about to use a physical tank buster attack. At level 52, your next job quest will give you Gauss Barrel. It's a 15-second recast. It can be turned on and it can be turned off. While on, your weapon skills, which is anything that uses TP, will have a 1.5 second cast time on it. Your skills will also all do 30% more damage than normal. You no longer have an auto attack when you're in Gauss Barrel, and since you have cast times, you have to stand still to use your skills. But you can turn this back off if you need to. And outside of the extremely high-level Savage and Extreme Mode content, which is for raiders, you don't technically have to have Gauss Barrel to do viable, passable damage. I use it because I love it, but if you don't like it, that's fine. There are only a couple of skills that even require it to be on. At level 54, you get Gauss Round, which is a 20-second cooldown which requires you have Gauss Barrel active to use and is a potency 200 attack. Very nice. At level 56, you get Rend Mind. I should note that everything after level 50 is acquired through a job quest. Rend Mind is the one that shares its recast with Dismantle. It is a magic damage down on the target as opposed to physical. This is apparently very useful in Savage raiding content, because most of the tank busters that are actually really dangerous are magic damage. At level 58, you acquire Hypercharge, a 120-second or 2-minute cooldown, which allows you to double the strength of your turret's auto attack or regen effect. It lasts for 20 seconds, and I use this during my burst. I will be demonstrating my burst very shortly, actually, because we're about to look at the very last skill currently available to Machinist, because the next expansion with the next 10 levels hasn't come out yet. Ricochet, a 60-second cooldown which requires Gauss Barrel be active. It delivers a potency 100 to the target and 200 distributed amongst all nearby targets. What it doesn't tell you is that if there's only one target, that extra 200 potency is also applied to that one target. Very useful for your burst. And before we get into any actual demonstration, I should go over additional skills, which are obtained from your secondary and tertiary classes. Now, Machinist doesn't require you level anything else to have it, you just need to get into the Heavensward content and unlock it. But you definitely should level Archer and Lancer in order to get certain skills. Specifically, from Archer, you're going to want Raging Strikes, which is a level 4 skill, very easy to get, and Hawk's Eye, which is a level 26 skill. A little harder to get, but not too bad. Now, Raging Strikes, I personally recommend as your first cross-class, but the actual order you can adjust based on your personal taste and preference. Though at level 30, I'm going to say you need the skill I have in the level 30 slot because of the fact that Machinist uses its DP fairly quickly, and this skill is essential for not running out in some fights. Raging Strikes is a 20% pure damage up for the next 20 seconds. It's a 180-second cooldown for anyone who's not an archer who's gained the trait which enhances it, but we'll be going over that in my Bard video. Then we have Hawk's Eye, which is a 90-second cooldown, so you can use it a lot more often. What this skill does is for the next 20 seconds you have 15% more dexterity than you normally would, meaning you do more damage, and your attacks can't miss while Hawk's Eye is active, unless the enemy is under an effect which guarantees it cannot be hit. And a skill that can be useful, but only really if you're having aggro problems, is Quelling Strikes, gained at level 34 on Archer. It's a 120-second cooldown, and it lasts for 15 seconds, and what it does is it drastically reduces the amount of enmity your attacks will generate, so it's much easier for a tank to get hate off of you, or much harder for you to just rip it off of the tank. And from Lancer, Feint and Keen Flurry are basically worthless to Machinist, because you will never actually need to use either of these. Or at least you shouldn't. Invigorate, on the other hand, is a 120-second cooldown that gives you 400 TP back. Very, very, very useful, because you will run out of TP in long fights. Being able to get back almost half of your TP every 120 seconds can really slow that process down. And Blood for Blood, an 80-second recast, which gives you an extra 10% damage, but makes you take 20% more damage for 20 seconds. Obviously, you don't want to be using this if you are the one being attacked, or if you know a very large attack is about to go off and hit everyone, because it's going to make it hurt you more. But if you're safe to just unleash as much damage as you want, you can activate this cooldown. And that concludes the cooldowns portion of this video and all skills. Now, let's get into a bit of a demonstration. Let me just zoom my camera out for maximum viewing range. These here are striking dummies. They are immobile practice targets to let you just test out skills and figure out perhaps a rotation or two. The little circle underneath them tells you which direction they're facing, because there are some classes who have positional bonuses where they do more damage if they hit it with a skill from, say, the side or from behind. There's even a class that has a skill that has a bonus for in front, which is a little odd, considering they're not a tank, but whatever. Now, I'm going to demonstrate my burst. So, you place your Rook auto turret, and the actual efficiency of my burst may not be the highest, but it works for me and I can remember how to do it. So, meh. Let's activate my Gauss barrel for maximum damage, and now I'm going to be using all of my skills. And don't worry if you can't follow what I'm doing as I'm doing it, I will be then explaining it more slowly, but let's get going. And that was my burst. See that? 7,092 damage. Not shabby. Not too shabby, eh? Now let me just break aggro off of those things because the battle music can get a little annoying. Alright, so here is a rundown of what I did for my burst. You can only do this once every 180 seconds, but you do have the ability to do a weaker semi-burst because everything else will come off cooldown aside from raging strikes. But I start with Hot Shot so that I have the extra 5% physical damage on all of my skills. I then immediately use my Head Graze, Gauss Round, and Ricochet for a nice big burst of damage. Then I pop Blood for Blood and Raging Strikes, hit them with Lead Shot, throw my Wildfire on them to begin compiling damage from both Lead Shot and everything that's about to follow. I then hypercharge my turret so that the enemy's taking more damage from me than they already were, further increasing how much will be compiled. I use Quick Reload and fire Split Shot to get the guaranteed proc and also get back some of the TP I used using Hot Shot and Lead Shot. Then I use Reload, fire off a Split Shot, activate Reassemble, and then you saw me use Blank immediately. You can only really use this if you can safely get up to the enemy to use Blank, but it is a little extra damage. I then use a guaranteed critical clean shot, and then I activate Hawk's Eye and Rapid Fire, so that my next 3 attacks come out faster and are even more powerful than the last set. By that point, Wildfire is about to fall off and detonate. Which means that since that did 7,092 damage, I did 4 times that much damage in 15 seconds. So I did about 28,000 damage. Let's see, 28,368 damage. That's how much I did in 15 seconds. A melee DPS will generally be able to do more than that overall, but the fact that I'm a ranged DPS designed for a bit more of a supportive and consistent damage roll, that's pretty good. Now, let's have a look at the radius of the attack on the Bishop auto turret. I will place it right about... Let's place it here and see if it can hit everything. Why not? Now, I need to actually attack something to get it to hit something. So, let's just shoot this question and see what happens. Hey! I hit everything with it. And this will just continue to attack as long as I have aggro on something until either everything is dead or I break aggro. Or recall it. Of course, the moment it's recalled, all the hate that was directed at it goes to me. And since Bishop is just a passive AoE damage, if you have a group pull and you are in at least a level 50 content, you can just throw this down in the middle of the enemies and start DPSing to your heart's content while it just kind of passively damages everything until they're either all dead, it somehow gets killed because it can take damage. As you see, it does have HP, just a little bit less than I do. It can become the target of enemies if it manages to get their aggro. It can also be hit by various AoEs. There are some AoEs that it's immune to since it's an immobile turret. It can't possibly dodge some things. So there are just some attacks that won't hurt it, and then some attacks that will. If your turret is about to die or gets a debuff that's basically making it almost useless, no problem. Just place a new one! Turrets are very, very useful to the Machinist because they are a damage up. And if you are fighting multiple enemies, and you're using the Bishop auto turret, and there's one enemy left that's got a fair chunk of health left, you can always swap out to the Rook auto turret for a little bit more damage on it to kill it a little bit faster. I do that sometimes I forget. Oh well. I'm not trying to be optimal, I'm not trying to be the best. I'm just trying to be good enough to not be a burden to my party. Which I think I am. Now, I believe I've covered everything. I suppose I could show you what Invigorate looks like. There you go. That gives you back 400 TP. Very useful in prolonged fights, or if you're having to use a lot of AoE. Because, as you can see down here on my bar, my AoEs are expensive. They take huge chunks of your TP, and you will run out quickly. Another way to mitigate how quickly you run out of TP is to place the Rook auto turret and promote it. because that causes it to regenerate your TP, which is very, very useful when you're in an AoE fight. One thing you may sometimes find yourself doing is, say you have an Astrologian or a White Mage, much less important if you have a Scholar, and they've been having to do a lot of big healing, or people have been dying a lot and they've been having to revive people a whole lot. Their MP is probably running low, very low. So, throw out the Bishop turret and promote it. It'll give them MP back, and they will thank you. Your turrets are extremely useful. Use them, love them, and never forget that they are a machinist's best friend. And with that, I believe I've covered everything. If I've missed anything, I'm sure people will yell at me in the comments about it. But I've covered everything I can think of. So, until my next video, thank you for watching. I hope I've been informative and helpful, and I hope my voice doesn't grate on you.